everyone. I'm Wa.
And I'm Chris, and welcome to Docu-Sweeties.
We're two longtime friends who discuss the riveting and sometimes trashy world of reality TV and docu-series.
Yes, but through our own lens, which is salty and bitter and acidic and almost, just barely palatable, I guess is the word, and palatable, which is a different word. But at the end of the day, hopefully mildly salty. What did I do there? No, just kidding. Sweet. Hi.
Hi, everyone. So thank you, Chris, for that lovely improv intro. We're talking about the Jinx, the life and deaths of Robert Durst. This is season 2, episode 1. I feel like I can always tell like where you're at depending on what you say in that your little intro. Like if we're salty and like I'm like, oh, she's in a mood. But if you're like we're sweet, we're popular, then I'm like, oh.
You're right, and I do it for a reason. Yeah, I want to know. Immediately coming in, what kind of Chris you're gonna get? You know what I'm saying?
I also have a callus on my hand that is busted and like it's bothering. It's painful, but it's also kind of like a yummy pain. So I keep messing with it. So if you see me doing that, that's what's happening.
Is it from lifting weights?
Sort of.
Dicks?
Okay.
Holes.
Okay.
Holes.
Okay.
Holes.
Okay. We'll just move on from here.
I want to tell you that this episode has a title, and it's an interesting title. It's called "Why Are You Still Here?" Which comes into play for the episode, but it's also just a sort of rhetorical question for us all. Like, why are we here?
Yeah.
Why are you still here? So now just like little recappity bappities. I watched the original Jinx season 1, if you will, whatever. Almost 10 years ago, but it was like basically 9 years ago. And obviously it revolutionized the docu-series format in such a way that we now, I can look back and I feel like this is one of the markers of the oh shit moments and the everyone has to watch and know what happens. And again, this and its predecessor are both HBO/Max, whatever they're going to call it now, streamables. So when it first aired, it was must-watch TV where we all are getting the fresh, hot Sunday night watch at the same time. We can't binge it, so we have to sit with our uncomfortability for a week. But instead, we just like let off steam by talk incessantly about it to everyone. And then as you hear people ask you, you're like, now I got to watch it, so I know what's happening. And that is why I'll always enjoy that kind of format, because it feels so invested in the audience having patience, which is and kind of like giving them not everything they want in a way that isn't like, it is manipulative, but it isn't but it's content that's good, it's keeping us coming back. And this one was a really well done episode of a very intense subject. Okay, go ahead. What have you seen?
Well, I didn't watch season 1 at all. I haven't watched it. And when it was happening, maybe I just didn't have access to Max because I wasn't, to me, it was like, I really needed to watch Game of Thrones, but I didn't really need to watch the Jinx. So I would make Game of Thrones work. Like I would go to a friend's house every Sunday to watch Game of Thrones. But I didn't do that with the Jinx. So I can only assume that I didn't have the
Friends.
the home, Wow. Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
That might be true. So astute point, Chris, astute point. I just didn't have access to HBO and I didn't care to fight for the access to it. Now, what I will say is that my first version of this was like The Staircase and Serial. So it wasn't on HBO, but it was that must listen to, bingeable, everybody's talking about it, or on bated breath to see what's going to happen next. So I do agree with you that there was a format started. I do believe Serial was just a podcast though, and I don't know if I think The Staircase was a visual, because I think I remember watching that one. But yeah, so super dope, super interesting. And watching this and not watching the first part of it, I'm like, wow, that guy is really dumb. And I wish that I wish to go back and watch season 1 so that maybe I could see footage of him, and maybe it's only through pictures, but just something of him that is just a lot younger than 72. Right? Because we find out that this man does this and he seems not like a psychopath at all. he just seemed like I'm watching it and I'm like, was he just bored? Was he just like a super rich person who was bored? I mean, that doesn't mean that you're not a psychopath, but I mean, how do you chop up a body? How do you kill your wife and then you wait decades before killing your best friend? And then you wait a year to kill your neighbor. So it just doesn't add up to me. Were there other killings in between and we just do not know about them at all? And it's just like, you know, it just seems weird. But anyway, so we start off this episode with the sound of a phone ringing. And it's Robert Durst calling his lawyer. So we hear a voiceover and he's like, Steve? Yeah, I'm very conversationally. I was arrested in New Orleans. And Steve is like, by who? Like, just calm too. Like, not like, oh my God, Robert. You know, he's just like fully trying to just be a super calm lawyer and assessing the situation. He's like, by who? The FBI. I had a revolver, a phony ID, and $80,000. And Steve is like,
oh boy. Yeah. He says, oh boy, twice. Just, oh boy.
Like,
I mean, just Steve has been waiting for this call, knows this call is coming. There's nothing Steve's going to do to help him. I mean, there's nothing that can, he's just like, yep. It's like having like, I had the baby. Yeah. What hospital? Cedars. Yeah.
That's a hospital.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's one of them.
That's where they give babies out at.
Yeah. I've heard of New Orleans. You know, like I wish.
But what was shocked
fake
me
ID
was a revolver, Chris. Why does that person have a revolver? That is the oldest type of gun. No, I mean, not the oldest. It's not a Tommy gun. It's not like a, you know, whatever. But like, it is such an old-fashioned 70s
He's
gun.
old, though.
I know that, but it's just so hilarious that he has a revolver. It's like, oh.
Well, like, what I know, and I don't know much, but I just think I was watching 48 Hours about this. Other kinds of guns, whether it's automatic, whatever the other kinds of guns, the shell casing comes out, just drops to the floor, and is automatic evidence. But I think the revolver does the barrel, and they keep them in there or something. So I think that something like there's no like casing or something is one of the other things. And
but don't you have to cock it every time? It's so
you spin it.
I don't know. You're right.
Look,
it says that you're right about spinning it. You spin it. No. I think when you cock it, it spins itself. It's like we're talking about a rotary phone. It's like we're really trying to figure out how to use a rotary phone in this moment.
There's so many same things. Circles involved. You gotta like spin it. Yeah, I have never shot anything, but I feel like if I was to shoot something, I just feel like I would have a revolver. Doesn't that like? And I also feel like I would need like a glove. I would have like. Wherever I held the revolver, there would also be like my like revolver gloves, you know, like so like none of the soot or like I don't know, is there comes out of it or whatever.
But also a really expensive latex mask.
That mask and the person that is wearing that on that boat. And I kept looking, is his mouth open or is his bottom lip his tongue? It looked like it was just like.
Oh my God. And it felt just like. If it felt like white privilege when they were interviewing him and he was just sitting the cop was like, you're okay, you want a blanket, you want a coffee? Okay, I'll give you a coffee, but only one caveat: you can't throw it on our computer and you can't throw it on us.
Yeah.
You agree, Bob? Yeah, I agree.
Like they're just like there's three able-bodied middle-aged men and what looks like what is a meth head grandpa on death's door. But so it's like, they're like, anyway, but let's get into this. So this is exciting. So obviously this is where we are. And we get introduced to John Lewin, who is the guy that loves investigating circumstantial cold cases, and his specialty without the body. That's John's thing, honey. He does not like a body. He's more of a face guy.
Yeah.
So anyway, but he's just like the one in the interview, and again in the interview, he's just like, oh my God, I'm sitting in front of the Bob Durst. I mean, you're just like, oh Jesus Christ. You're just like, can I call you Bob? Is I call you Mr. Durst? Just like, like, do you want to come in my face later? Like, you're just like, what is happening? Like,
Fanboy.
yeah, you're just like literally like Eminem Stan plays. You're like, this person's going to like, I mean, and as it starts to unfold, one of the crazier things about this episode is, the juror that's on his side from before. But anyway, he's like, Bob is unlike any killer, and I've seen a lot of killers, and he doesn't fit the bill. And we've been knowing this. As I said, he's decrepit looking, like I would not want to walk past him in a dark alley. Not so much that I think that he's going to like beat me up. It's just that he looks like he smells. He looks like he is just, he's ugly as sin, like it's just, you can't walk past a troll and not think about it. I mean, like he is trollish in his statue and everything. But like I love that also when John introduces himself as like a cold case guy. He's just, Bob Durst is like, can't believe you even would have so many to have full-time employees, which is in itself such a bitchy thing to say, like your job is meaningless, or like that part.
Then he's like, well, hey Bob, this is John. Hey Bob, you're obviously aware of the Jinx. And Bob is like, I know. Then John is like, why did you speak to him? And Bob is like, I ask myself that every day. Like he's so like, yeah, you're right. And so John is talking about how when the filmmaker reached out to him, it's never happened to him in all of his years in this business, and it happened in 2013. And so there's going to be thunder right now, so if you hear it, let me know. And so he is like, okay, how can we stick it to Bob after reviewing the evidence? He's like, the only way we can do it is,
oh Jesus. Well, is there a national emergency happening over there? I mean, like, it seems like a lot, like.
I'm going to sleep so good tonight. I'm so happy. It's
at least that was like 7 seconds away, like at least it's like 7 miles away. That's the old thing.
The counting in between the lightning and the thunder.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they're like, we could go after the Susan Berman hook, because there was nothing, like he got acquitted of killing the neighbor in Texas, and the only way we can get him back on this is Susan Berman. And so they open that shit right up, and they know that they only have like 2 weeks before Bob like goes on the lam and like tries to talk to all his friends and make everybody shut up. Like they don't have the element of surprise anymore. And so they were like, we know he's gonna run. So
yeah,
we know he's gonna run.
He has one move. He's not fighting.
Yeah,
it's running.
He's running.
With
and
that
so
money.
Then the FBI starts to trail his phone, and then someone tips him off he needs to throw his phone away, and so he does, and they lose him for a couple of days. I don't remember how long. But then we get footage of how by the time the police officers get to his home, they realize that it's been not only is it super clean and disinfected, but it's also been low-key staged, and everything that would show that a person actually lived there was gone. And so then they had the surveillance tape along with the front receptionist, and they talked about who might have done this. And we find out that it is the wife of an ex-juror, of a juror from his Texas case of him killing his neighbor. So one of the jurors, after they acquit him, was so enamored with Bob because of how rich he was and how cool he was, just like the closest he'd ever get to a celebrity or somebody with a lot of money, just so much money, that he just became a fan of Bob. And him and his wife began to work for Bob, and they cleaned out his effing apartment for him when he went on the run.
Yeah, they certainly did. This man watched a whole trial of like a brutal execution where, again, Robert Durst had admitted to cutting up the person's body, and still they didn't find him. Galveston, Texas, God bless. Guilty of murder. Also, we'll go back. He had a very intense lawyer at the time that supposedly did, the devil's work. The devil's work to like get that man free. Yeah. And again, Chris Lovell or whatever just is like, I just at first just wanted to, find out a little more about the man, get some questions answered, but it's turned into a friendship. And the friendship is great because sometimes he pays me and my, trash wife girlfriend to do whatever his bidding, which is like clean up his dirty work. But we'll do whatever it takes for a couple of, quid. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
so like,
Yeah. Chris Lovell with so much energy gets in front of, like, right after the case, he gets in front of media and he's like, he's like, Chris Lovell. And they're like, how do you spell that? He's like, CHRISLOVLL. Like, he has been waiting for this. This is my moment. Like, he has just been waiting for this to happen in his life. And so, anywho, that's what he does for Robert Durst, and we don't really get anything else on them in this episode about like how their choice to go and sanitize the apartment impeded an investigation. But moving on, how they ended up finding Bob is so, as Chris would say, LOL, because it's just such an old man thing to get caught doing. Like, I am just like, how is it that you still have a voicemail that you can call into? Like, what?
Jitterbug. It's a jitterbug phone.
No, don't say jitterbug.
Babe,
you just unlocked a memory for me.
Jitterbug. It's a jitterbug phone, which was like the phone for old people that can like, I know. So that he calls it's a jitterbug voicemail.
Oh my gosh.
And it's still too hard for him. He still can't see the numbers. I mean, he or whatever, just fuck. God damn it. He's constantly cursing under his breath, muttering under his breath on meth. Like, that's his, like, muttering on meth. That is his way. It's just
they wiretapped him. Wiretapped him, and so they were just waiting for calls to come in and out of his phone services. And one of them was him calling his phone to check his voicemail. And so they just traced the shit. And they found it at a JW Marriott, which, listen, I love a JW Marriott, okay? I'm still going to attend. I'm still going to stay the night. But they checked for him and he had gone under an assumed name. So they're like, oh shit, he's in there, but we don't know where he is. So what we're going to do is just going to hang out in the lobby, which you can do. So the feds undercover hang out in the lobby, and then they see him and they call his name. And when they call his name, a fan who has just finished watching the Jinx is like, oh my God, I am so happy to meet you. I just finished watching the documentary in which you most likely allegedly killed 3 people. Can I have your autograph? And the FBI is like, ma'am, no, I'm sorry. We're going to escort you this way. And so they end up catching his ass and finding all of that shit in his room. They find drugs, and which we all know because Chris has been mentioning it, meth. They found drugs. They found a mask. They found $80,000 in cash and a revolver and a fake ID. And Cuba, a map of Cuba. And they were like, how are you gonna do it? He was like, I was just gathering things in case.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like he would have to have left a long time ago. Now, here's the thing. There is literally a guy that's talking to the director, Andrew Jarecki, and he's like documenting literally on paper all of Robert Durst's, after every episode drops, like first like thoughts about it. So as like 1 and 2, it's like, hey, it's stupid. Yeah, they just keep, talking about the same shit. By episode 3, they've already gotten through all the deaths. I mean, I was going to talk about for the next 3 episodes. Talk about blow your load. Am I right, friend? And he's like, talk about blow your, like, writing this down. I'm like, well, you're still talking to this man. Like, everyone talks to this man, as we hear through the different conversations. Robert Durst, like, it has if he hasn't killed 3 people. But anyway, as we're going on. So after the 3rd episode of the part 1 is when they made the connection about Beverly Hills being spelled fucked up and being basically the same writing as another one, which is the piece of evidence that opened up the Susan Berman cold case. So that's why they were able to do it from this moment, which I guess the documentarians were the first to put together. So, God bless them. And then, of course, 4 and 5, knowing that he had sat down for a weekend interview or whatever and didn't obviously know or assume that he had like done his due diligence about giving them exactly what they want. This entire time, they've also hinted at the fact that he's not so much smart as he just wily, weak looking, and very rich. Like he's just failed as he upward of a killer. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that he obviously has a psychopath or sociopath that's obviously what's happening. Whether he's going to try and say that meth is involved in like all the killings, like they're all meth fueled rages or whatever. I mean, that's basically what he's trying to say with the first gentleman. But, I just, yeah, there we are with that one.
So
Yes.
he also, what's funny is that every time he watched an episode in real time of the Jinx Part 1, he would be at home in Texas watching the show on HBO. And then he would get on the phone and do an interview with a New York Times journalist. And so this New York Times journalist had like, quotes from him and was getting the weekly play-by-play. And then it wasn't until the 5th episode when the journalist actually called him and he was like, Bob, so you watched it? He's like, yeah, I gotta go. We'll talk later. And the journalist was like, that is not like him. Usually he wanted to talk all about it and explain his side. But this time he brushed me off. It's like he didn't want to talk to me, and I knew that he was going to run. And it's so funny because when he's talking to Lewin when he's being detained after they've caught him after he's on the run, he's like, I'm not denying that I was in the process to flee. And the Lewin is the detective is like, so why are you still here? Which is the title of the show. And Bob is like, I made arrangements and I considered the possibility, but I never really like in my mind solidified that I would do it.
That you would arrest me. You just basic inertia.
I just didn't think you would arrest me. So that's what's crazy about that. And so then we cut to the producer, the filmmaker, doing a what's it called when you premiere or like a screening of the last episode of Part 1 with all the parties and victims involved, including like a prosecutor, the lead detective on the like Galveston case, like all these people, the victims, Susan Berman's surviving family, just so many people that had to do with the filming of it and people who were affected by Robert Durst's crimes. And at the end, when the final thing is like, I killed them, of course, everyone, it just like freaks out and it's like, what just happened? Oh my God, did he admit to it? Can we use this? Is it legal? Like, how can we prosecute him? And like, everyone's having these side conversations. It's like water cooler content for like the people who lived it. It was just like wild to watch that.
Yeah. I mean, he had sat down for that interview and then just was like, I'm going to go to the bathroom and just meth muttered underneath like, oh, I fucked up. Oh,
he told the police.
What I do? Killed them all, of course. He's just, I mean, you're just like, oh my Jesus, and yeah, but yeah, it is really, really sad. But Janine Pirro, she's like now like a legal commentator, I think, on Fox. But she used to have like a Judge Janine Pirro, and then she was like New York. She's like 72. She looked great in this screening. I was like, Jesus.
She looked great. She did.
Yeah, she did. She's obviously gotten some work done, and it's good work. She's made a lot of money, so I'm sure she can afford the best.
Great work. Great work.
Yeah, but basically, yeah. So that was really, really healing for the families, I think. But we go back to Bob. So now Bob is in NOLA and he's not having fun, despite being in a very fun place with a lively food atmosphere and great jazz. But he's in prison and he is just like a little, old granny, just like going through his Rolodex, calling every person and trying to see if he has their emotional support. Like, hello, Susie. Susie, you home? Susie's like, hey, Bob. Oh, Susie, how are you? How good? How are you? Well, I'm in jail. Yeah, of course you're in jail, Bob.
Yeah,
so
Bob.
Not
Yeah.
that good. Not that great, huh, Bob? He's like, oh, I just can't believe that this is happening to me. Josh, Doug. Everyone's just like, oh, it's just a montage of different people he's calling. He's just like, and this poor John guy has to listen to every fucking call. So he's just like, I listen to all of them. I cannot believe this tool. Like, and yeah, one interesting one is that he has an ex-wife, one that he didn't kill. The one he didn't kill that just has bushy hair comes to visit him. The two people and she's just like, don't even worry about it. We have a plan in action. I got the old lawyer that got you off, death's deceiving.
His name is Dick.
I know,
for
but
a
he's like
reason.
deceiving, devilish troll. Like, can you imagine what the man has done? Like he's gonna be like P Diddy's lawyer. Like that's gonna be
Mhm,
like P Diddy's lawyer. I mean, okay, we got this.
mhm.
So basically, he's like, yeah, he's just back on your team. He can't wait to work for you and get more damn money. How are we gonna get more money? Anyway, what are we gonna do? Bob Durst and math is like, well, we can sell the one apartment complex. Bushy hair is like, oh yeah, 20 million there. Like. And because she's getting whatever cut she's getting. She'll do like she's just like Chris Lowell. He has surrounded himself with dirty dealing, just tempted by trollish devils and
Oh my
whatever,
god.
just the most have-nots of people that will like get his barnacly cast-offs as he just feasts on the dead carcasses of like whales. He's just I can't even. These people are, don't come for me, but they all might kill me. I don't know what to tell you, but I'm on a rant.
They really are just the most immoral and corrupt people that you could ever imagine, that they're sticking by this person who,
Yes.
even if it wasn't true, even if he was, but like they don't say you killed somebody 3 different times. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the thing that's crazy about it. They're like, we got you, Bob. We're on your side. We love you, Bob. Take care, Bob. Stay up, Bob. We'll send you something, Bob. We'll get something together, Bob. I'm like, just who are these people?
I just want
So
you to know that if you ever need anything, ever, wink, wink, something not to fucking say to a psychopath who's killed 3 people. Oh, I'm sorry. You'll be there for if he ever needs anything ever. What are you talking about?
yeah,
What has
and
he done for you? Oh, sorry.
he's so out of touch that he's like, she's Debbie, his ex-wife, is like, yeah, so we can sell this and they'll sell that. He's like, so real estate in the Hamptons, has that gone up? Yeah, Bob, it has. And she's like, yeah, we could sell it for about 20 million. And he's like, okay, good. And I'm like, 20 million is so much money to me that like for him to just be like, all right, and $20, great. And then has the audacity to tell that her hair is bushy, which is like crazy that you're in prison and my hair is bushy. Okay. So then at the end, he's talking to one of his friends, and the final conversation, he says to his friend, he's like, the DA will call you. Don't tell him shit. The friend is like, yeah, the reason why we're here is because of you. You don't tell them shit. Like Bob is, and the thing is that Bob knew, like when Lewin thinks that he's about to get Bob to make a confession, Bob is like, yeah, no, I'm gonna need my lawyer if I'm even gonna, like, I need to know what the deal is gonna be. I need to know all that stuff. Like, so Lewin is like, damn it, I thought he was gonna give me a confession, but really he was playing me the whole time. And I'm like, yeah,
There's
it
a
was
reason why
crazy
there's
and
a
great.
reason why he has gotten out of it. Unfortunately, he's been taught legally how to get out of things, which is just get the best people to represent you and change the
But also
narrative.
say things like, I didn't think I was going to leave. I was just preparing, but I hadn't solidified the thought in my mind, which means that it's not first degree or premeditated. It is at least second or third degree. So like he's already pulling down the charges in his favor. All right, you
When he said he
guys.
had a fake ID, I was a little bit like, let me see the ID. Let me see the picture. Yeah, I just like, because that Debbie, his ex-wife, like knows a multitude of sins, like she should be like investigated. There's no way that she lives a life as a purely truthful person, and just this is her like one downfall. Like, she's doing shit left and right. Like, look
She's
at the
burying
money, look all the
bodies.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's getting paid to like, burn bodies. I don't even know what it is, but yeah. Also, I was a little bit like, in a whole apartment building in the Hamptons, only 20 million. Must be a really
Oh,
shitty apartment building.
I assumed it was a house. It was apartment building.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that great.
They have like, she's like, we have some of the condos. Yeah, he just like, he had taken out 9,000 every day. So he's premeditating obviously a leave. He knew what he was doing. I assume that he's killed other people, and I think that they were just people that weren't involved in his life on a day-to-day basis. Like, I'm sure that he's killed many drug people. If he's getting meth, like, I feel like he's killed drug people before, or they've tried to hurt, at least once, and maybe even try to kill him, that he's just like turned around and didn't know that he'd have a revolver and a quick shot on him,
Yeah, I guess. They need to check that house in Galveston and see if there's any other dead bodies hanging out, buried or whatever.
Now they gotta check the housekeeper and Chris Lovell. Okay, but don't come after me. Okay. Anyway, that's all we have to say, and we have more coming your way, and that rhymed, so you're welcome.
Oh, thank you for that. She's a rapper, remember. If you guys want to support us, you can join us on patreon.com/docusweeties. It's $10 a month, and you do get some fun content like the visuals of what you're listening to, as well as a live every first Monday of the month. And I have discovered a new feature, which is called chat or conversation or community or something like that. And I posted today in there on the Patreon a couple of 2 authors and books that I really like from the spicy genre. So I've created a little chat room that's called Wahima's Books Reading, whatever. And I'll create another chat room that has to do with like what I'm binging. So it's, kind of another way to engage with us. But if you can't do that at patreon.com/docusweeties for $10 a month, Chris will tell you what the other options are.
I will. Let's go to your social medias and follow and like all our posts. We are at DocuSweeties on Instagram, at DocuSweeties on TikTok, at DocuSweeties1 on X. We have a Facebook group, the DocuSweeties Podcast Facebook group, and we are on YouTube at DocuSweeties. So please make sure that you are up to date with all of our fresh content. And at the same time, if you haven't yet given us 5 stars, review wherever you listen to podcasts, we definitely deserve it. Anyway, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you later, okay?
Bye.